is Martha Pfanschmidt, and this show is a work of encaustic paintings and collages by myself and metal sculpture by my co-exhibitor, Nancy Wilkins. How the show came about is Nancy and I have been friends and colleagues for many, many years, and we have always worked with shape. This piece here, which is called Circus Life, is a grouping of 9 pieces that make one piece, and these pieces incorporate many of the shapes that I was inspired to use having looked at Nancy's work. So while I use some of these shapes myself, a lot of these were taken directly from sculptures that Nancy has done. So that's how the show was conceived. It was called Circle Angle Arc because it's really about the shapes and how the shapes express feelings of dis-ease, playfulness, how you can convey emotions using these shapes, which I think both Nancy and I have done. So these are 4 of the paintings that I created for the show. Before I talk about them in particular, I want to talk about how they're made, because people are always curious about the materials I use to make these paintings. These are encaustic paintings, and encaustic paintings are made with beeswax, which is what this is, but this is just a bar of beeswax, and pure powdered pigment. And you want to zoom in on that, see the color. So this is just powder in a jar, and it's pure color. This one is cobalt, which is, of course, a toxic substance, but it's safe inside the jar. So these I mix these together in a hot palette, so that this is melted, and I paint hot. So everything you see here has been added to the panel while it's hot. And then, after I've applied a layer of the encaustic paint with color, I use this torch, which I then go across the surface and fuse it gently using the torch. Each layer is applied and melted just slightly to fuse it to the layer below it, and that's how these are created. They don't have any kind of finish. What you see is just the beeswax. That's all it is. So we'll start with this one here. This one is called Half Full, and this is a subject I've painted or done glass or prints about many times. The idea of the glass being half empty or half full. I like to think of things as being half full. So this is just really about how we look at life one way or the other, and how, to me, it's always filling up. It's not emptying out. So that's half full. These 3 here are directly taken from pieces of Nancy's sculptures. Not necessarily the ones that are in the show, but ones that she has done in the past. So I took photographs of her sculpture and then cut little bits out and looked at them up close. So these shapes are shapes Nancy has used in the past. I added a circle in all of them. They didn't necessarily have circles in them. So the circle was my addition to it. And yet they really, I feel like, I think of all of the work, these are the ones that are the most like both Nancy and myself. And then come over here. So here are 2 paintings done for this show. The one on the bottom, I think was maybe the last painting I did, called My Red Boat. And, excuse me, it still has the little pieces that are filling up or spilling out of this vessel shape. Again, I think of it as being playful and fun, and the boat is on a pinnacle there and could tip either way. These things, are they rolling down or are they stable? I hope it engages your imagination and makes you think about these things. The one up here is one of the first ones I did for the show. It's called Something Nothing. And it's more specifically related to a series of collages I did last year, where there were a number of shapes balancing, floating, falling. And I think of this one as being a part of that series of pieces that are about sort of the precarious world we live in right now. Okay. So this one was also one of the first pieces I did. It's called Joining the Circus, and I have a circus story to tell. I'm going to give you the abbreviated story. And then I'd forgotten all about this until I started doing the work for this show, entitling this one Joining the Circus, and the grid piece is called Circus Life. When I was a young teenager, my sister took me to the circus, and while we were waiting for the circus to begin, we were out in the lobby. This man came over and said, "I was wondering if you would be in my act." And I looked at him, and he looked fairly normal, although he had kind of a black pointy mustache and big eyebrows, but it seemed okay. And he said, "I promise you it's nothing dangerous. All you need to do is when I ask for a volunteer from the audience, you raise your hand." So I did that, and I went down and was proceeded to lay on a wooden board, which he picked up with 2 ropes between his teeth and swung me between his legs. He was Santini Demon, the sword swallower, the fire swallower. He climbed up a ladder of swords. He was that guy at the circus. So I was in the circus briefly. That was my moment of glory in the circus. So, and I'd forgotten all about it until I started titling these pieces. And the last few I'm going to share with you are these 3 little guys here. Again, just a continuation of the grid pieces, but they're all about how things are falling, slipping, sliding, kind of like life. And we can choose to be serious and fearful of it, or we could be playful with it. And I feel these pieces work on the playful side of that. So I did some more collages for this show, and these are continuation of the ones I had done last year that I called my COVID collages. And they were all about this sort of tipping, falling, imbalanced aspects of life, which is certainly how we were all feeling last year. But the truth is that I think, speaking personally, I still kind of feel that way, even though things are better. But recovering from this has been a challenge. So these collages are based on the idea of clearly circle, angle, arc, but also that idea of things not being quite balanced, things falling, things flying, things maybe not staying quite the way they were, because isn't that really what life has been like lately? And I enjoy making these collages. They're really therapeutic, and I think they're fun.
Hello. I'm Nancy Wilkins. Started off as a printmaker, kind of morphed into a 2-day collage artist, and then a few years ago started doing these sort of collaging of metal into sculptures. So I'm just going to start here. It's true that both Martha and I have shared for many moons. I used to print in a studio below her apartment and would be making collages, run upstairs with a little tiny square, and the piece that I was making be like, Martha, should I move this here? Should I move it there? Should I move it here? And I think she moved away because she couldn't take that anymore. So yeah. The circle, angle, arc, they're both beautiful shapes in themselves that put together make structures. Also, they have sort of like, spiritual meanings for me. The arc is often like, hands up in the air, either giving thanks or pleading for help. And circle, the sun, the moon, we're all together. And then angles, I've always been attracted to architecture, that kind of thing. This was, I think, the first piece I made, and part of the beauty and fun of doing these is going to the scrapyard and finding these pieces. And although I do some cutting as far as length or width goes, the shapes themselves I find as is. And I was attracted to this with the writing, etc. And of course, when everything is in the yard, it's the rust, and it's dirty, and but it's beautiful. And so always interested in trying to find this place of balance, and also sort of not balance, what Martha was talking about. Even though these are metal sculptures, welded, they still can feel so kind of fragile and tenuous. And I would say that that's how we are as humans frequently as well. And that playfulness and also movement, the dance. This kind of has even though it's solid, sort of a whirligig kind of quality about it. So there's that. Coming over here, in the scrapyard, this was a piece, and I just, I love the color. A lot of times, mostly, it's just, rust or silver. You don't find a lot of color pieces, and I like all the scratch marks left behind, its history. It reminds me of that printmaking thing in etching, I forget the word, where pentimento, where people would make an image on a plate and then burnish it down and then make another image, and then you'd have that sort of layered history, which I always find really beautiful. And then this piece, putting them together in my work over time, there is a sort of a figurative kind of situation, like this presence that is always with me and kind of appears in artwork kind of as an abstract situation like this. And this is silver leafed, because why wouldn't you want to put silver leaf onto a scrap metal? So there's that. This piece is called, so this one is called Karina Karina. Most of my titles come from songs, and this is a Bob Dylan song that I really love. Because it kind of reminded me of a kachina, but instead of calling it kachina, I called it Karina Karina. And I forgot to say that the one over in the corner that we started is called Love Is What I Got, which is some song that's happening right now and was in my head over and over again. Anyway, this one is called After the Doors, This Is the End Table. And that Doors song is a very happy song. This is the end, my friend, the end. This, my friend, Stephen, his gallery mate, through COVID and all the turbulence of this past year and a half, we've had many sort of difficult conversations. We both have a very dark sense of humor. And so I made this in honor of him. This is like a tailpipe, so it's like the end of our, gas, oil, we've done damage to the earth. And then this part kind of reminds me of those cable tables that many frat boys would have on their front porches. So it's like the end of the patriarchy. So anyway, that's that. I look forward to what he has to say about it. This one is called Like a Prayer. don't know. I would say that all the pieces that I make generally in some way is like a prayer, either a serious prayer or not. And so there's that. Again, I was attracted to that red and then the blue angle and such. This kind of crackly paint is something I found. It's a spray paint that does this beautiful kind of texture. Anyway, so, and again, all the shapes were what was there. I didn't really do anything to them. Okay. Over here, this one is called For Louise, and Louise Nevelson. And I have been looking at some of her work recently and just really appreciating, like, what a pioneer woman, artist, to do these sculptures, assemblages, and this particular piece is it's heavy. It's physically heavy because these are chunks of metal. And I have to say, you know, I love metal. It's so beautiful as an elemental. I know that it's a human-made thing, but it feels very elemental, sort of that combination of earth and fire and water in some way. And this kind of has a front and a back. I'll just spin it around here. Anyway, you know, just the chunky edges of cut. I have no idea what these things were for. This comes out. Look, it comes out. Maybe not. I don't know. It's a feature. You can take it out. You can play with it. You can put it back in. All right, anyway. And Greg Wilbur turned me on to the use of magnets. So these pieces are attached by magnets. This one is called Still Yearning, which also is a Bob Dylan song. Well, it's from a song called Ain't Talking, Just Walking. And, you know, again, this sort of reaching for the sky thing. Originally it was going to be a vertical piece. I saw this, but then both Natalie and I agreed that it looked beautiful laying down. Put this on top, and it has sort of a bird-like quality in a way. And, you know, again, love the rust and the relationship of the shapes. That was not very articulate, but. And last, this one is called Quarter Moon in 10 Cent Town. And that is an album actually by Emmylou Harris that I listened to a lot when I was a teenager. And it's a line in a song. Found this piece, and it had been laying around in my backyard for quite some time. Really was playing with the whole balance thing here. This flat plane holding up this heavy deal, kind of off kilter from the base, and again, kind of a movement deal. The gears of how everything moves. I liked this plate with the 2 holes already cut out that you can kind of look down and see what's happening below. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say. Yeah, thank you. Hope you come on down. So something Martha noticed as we were setting up or in the midst of it was kind of like the uncanny shared composition between this piece with this kind of angled deal and then the circle, very descriptive, and then this piece, Jumble, which shares, you know, it's almost like the head is kind of bowed, the body shape, and then the legs. Yeah, it was as if we were talking to each other, and of course we never do.
We didn't see those pieces at the same time. I mean, I didn't even see this piece of Nancy's until today. And I'm looking at it, and then I went, wait a minute, that looks a lot like that piece I did. And it just shows how we're just co-joined.
Right. Well, we're both Aries.
That too.